Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural organizations. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Colin Bissett. Colin serves as the curator of the Penny Lane Beatles Museum, located in Dunedin, Florida. During the program, we're learning why and how the museum came about. We'll go on a behind-the-scenes tour, and in the process, come to better understand and appreciate the museum's overall mission, its wide range of artifacts, and the various other opportunities that are available for the general public. Let's start by meeting Colin and then finding out all about the Penny Lane Beatles Museum. Welcome, Colin. So delighted you're able to be here.
It's great to be here, Jay. Many thanks for asking.
You know, I was thrilled to come across the museum a few weeks ago, and it's a real treat to have you with us from the museum itself and to be able to see so many of the fabulous artifacts. Before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest if you'd start by just sharing a little bit about your background and how you became associated with the museum, please.
Okay, well, I've been in theater all my life from a very early age, and to directing theaters in Great Britain and in America, and ballet companies as well. So my background is in pure theater. However, before that, obviously before that, I was born in London and lived in Liverpool and educated in Liverpool. And there I went to school with Rory Best, who is Pete Best's brother. Pete Best was the first drummer. So I got to know Rory pretty well. And consequently, our school was located in Hayman's Green, which is where the Casbah is. And that's where the Beatles first started as the Beatles. So we used to go swing by there when we were kids, young teenagers, and see them there. And then finally at the Cavern Club and other locations around Liverpool, Litherland Town Hall. Sound wonderfully romantic, but they weren't really. So anyway, so then I've known Robert for quite a few years, and I retired from theatre some years ago, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity for me to share my background and knowledge of Liverpool in those early days. So here I am. Welcome.
Wonderful. Well, when you mention Robert, we're talking about Dr. Robert Endell, who is sort of the creator of the museum. Would you share a little bit about the history and Dr. Endell's involvement with it?
Yes, indeed. Do we call him Dr. Robert or Robert? But anyway, he's been collecting for some 40 years. He started when he was studying in England and Petticoat Lane, which is kind of a souvenir type area, and picked up a couple of memorabilia there, and then continued it for the rest of his life. So as I say, for some 40 years, he's been working on this collection and still building with it. We have here about 2/3 of the collection, maybe a little bit less, and the remainder's in storage because we're running out of space. We've only got 650 square feet here. So although we've got most of the items here, but it's still a little cramped. So we're moving to 6,500 square feet by the end of the year, we hope, by the end of 2022. So
that's very exciting because I know other communities, even beyond Florida, were interested in hosting the museum. But Robert was very sort of adamant, I think, in keeping it where his roots are here. So that's great news that it's able to expand locally.
Yeah, it's great. It's great for Dunedin. It's great for the community, and it's great for tourists. Dunedin is really a good tourist market, and it's growing and growing and growing. And this will just add more beauty and more exciting things to do in the town, in the city.
What's been the range of visitors, speaking of tourists and people who have seen it, just a sense of who's been coming?
Well, before COVID, of course, we had a lot of Europeans, a lot of Asian visitors. So from all over the world, they would come. And of course, now with the internet, etc., it's very easy to say, what can we do in Dunedin? What's the good things to do? And we were highly rated on TripAdvisor and all the other media outlets. So that when people see it, they get excited and then they want to come and visit us. And so literally from all around the world, pre-COVID and lately, it's just been local people and people from around Florida and some people. The snowbirds are coming back slowly but surely, and I think the Canadian border's open because now we get some Canadians into internationally. They're starting to come back, but not as in as great a number as they used to be. So.
Yeah, well, we all hope things will pick up in that direction throughout the country.
Yeah, we do.
Before we have you take us on a tour, we're fortunate to have a short clip featuring Dr. Entel and his words, some thoughts about the museum, a couple of the artifacts. So let's enjoy that, and then we'll continue our conversation.
Okay.
John Lennon used to like tassels a lot, and so he wore this. Maybe this was stylish in the 60s, and this was actually his.
In Penny Lane,
We have a lot of their autographs. That's John Lennon's autograph.
there is a doctor showing artifacts.
I work very hard at the hospital. It's been a tough 18 months, with the pandemic, and when I'm there, it's very stressful. So when I come here, this is my happy time, and I want to share my happy time with the community.
Robert Entel opened up the Penny Lane Beatles Museum in downtown Dunedin back in 2018.
They had a jewelry classroom here, and when they moved it to the Art Center, after the new addition was built in Dunedin, this opened up.
All the people that come and go stop and say hello
I was there with my wife and her mother, and Ringo Starr was there.
and share their favorite Beatles memories with Entel.
I always remembered that.
Well, thanks. We love having fans like you. This is the perfect example of people that come in and they want to share their stories. And what can be better than this?
There's so much to see in Penny Lane, and yet so much people don't see. Simply put, there's no more room.
This is less than 600 square feet. I need 6,000 square feet, 6 to 10,000.
Now, as Entel looks to expand, he's faced with a difficult choice.
We've been wooed by many cities, St. Petersburg, Tampa, even Washington, D.C.
But he says he's holding out. Although he'd love to share the collection in other places, ultimately,
They've asked us, can you please open? But I feel comfortable here. This is my stomping ground. These are my people.
in Dunedin, Adria Urahita, Spectrum, Bay News 9.
Well, we're also glad that Robert held out and, as we said, going to expand shortly. But for now, let's take advantage of our time, Colin, and would you please start our tour and point out various items that we come across?
Yes, indeed. And I'll just click to the narration part. Here we go. Click there. And as Robert said, we're under 600 square feet here. And I'll take you on a tour and stop at a couple of exciting places. So you can get a sense of how large the place, the museum is.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went around here and get an idea. So you can imagine going into a place that's 10 times larger than this, which is going to be magnificent. So walking around here, we've got some great items, which you've already seen from Robert's point of view. And I'd just like to point out a couple of others that perhaps might be of great interest to your viewers and people who want to come to the museum. We have some hair from the Beatles over there in that corner there. And that's the original hair. All the items here, by the way, are authenticated, that they're genuine, and we have letters of authenticity, etc. So here is a poster which dates back to 1961 from Liverpool, and they're playing at the New Brighton Tower Ballroom, which was across the river from Liverpool. And you can see on the bill there we have the Beatles, and then Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, and that's the band that Ringo used to be with. Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. Rory Storm, his name was Alan Caldwell, and he was our swim coach at grammar school in Liverpool, and way back in the day. So there's a lot of meaning in this poster for me. And you can see the admission price there was 5 shillings. That was a lot of money in those days. I never went to this concert, but I've been to seen all the people on there. Jerry and the Pacemakers, of course, the Reno 4, and King Size Taylor and the Dominoes, etc. And further down, here's another interesting piece down here. There's an old poster of the Quarrymen, signed by the drummers and a couple of the people that were in there. And here's a really interesting piece down here. These two items here show little bits of sheets that have been cut off cut up from a hotel in New York where the Beatles stayed, and the Beatles slept in these sheets. So the housekeeper must have made a few bucks out of that one, and I don't know how they accounted for finding out about where the sheets disappeared to. But whoops, hello, are you there? And,
yes, we are.
Here's another one of Stuart Sutcliffe, who was originally with the Beatles way back when, and Letters to His Girlfriend. So again, that goes way back. And here we have Pete Best in the Beatles Mersey Beat. This was the local newspaper at the time, and this was 1962. And Pete had just been fired from the Beatles, and before they hired Ringo, and he was obviously not too happy about it at the time, and less so as I guess as time went on, and more successful they became without him. And here's another early photograph of the Beatles outside the Cavern Club in Liverpool, and further down is one with Ringo, with Pete Best playing the drums with the Beatles. And over here is a more up-to-date one. This is when Ringo had joined the band, and they're interviewing him. The cabin was 3 arches. You can get a sense of the arches there. And if you notice the speaker on the wall, basically that was the sound system. Well, there was a couple more speakers, but it was very unsophisticated. And these 3 arches were housed where they are. There's the center one, stages behind them, of course, and there'd be 2 more arches either side, one side and then the other side. And there's that you would dance in those areas. Dance to the point where you couldn't move too much because there wasn't a whole lot of space, and there was only one means of egress into the facility and the exit. So it was pretty jammed, and they developed a dance called the Cavern Stomp, which I'm not going to demonstrate for you, but it was basically you never moved. You just moved from side to side really slowly, or really fast depending on what the music was. And here's some more photographs here of the Beatles in the early days, again with Pete Best, and up here is with Muhammad Ali down in Miami when we were on tour with him. So walking around here, we have more items coming across this one. This is a Hirschfield print, and done in 1975 of Ringo, of course, and that's quite interesting, but very interesting. And here's the most. We get a lot of people coming in and saying, well, I remember the Beatles when they first, and this is the most famous one, when they first appeared in 1964 on television. And everybody has a story about where they were. They could tell you where they were and how they, how they saw them on TV for the first time and how they loved them. Here is a guitar that's signed by Paul, and it's a right-handed guitar. He was left-handed, of course, and it's a 6-string. It's not a bass, but nonetheless, that's his authenticated signature. And moving on down here, we have the Abbey Road poster, which is full of interesting items. And when I point some out, there's a gentleman up here, Paul, his name was, and he was from Florida at the time, and he was just walking around, and he came across the Beatles walking across the street, and of course nobody quite knew they did know who they were, but not to the extent that they do now. And the VW, the 5th Beatle over here, this was owned by a gentleman who lived in the flats over to the right. And soon after the Abbey Road became famous and a hit, he was unable to take his car out because every time he took it out, people would steal the registration plates because it was so famous. So that didn't do him anyway. And also, there's several books being written about that. All the people who are in this photograph up here, there's some gentlemen in white clothes. They're painters. Either painters and decorators. And there's some book I read once had all their names in it. And the gentleman over here, Paul, he's talking to a police. That's a police van. So that's quite interesting. This used to be a quick way home for me. I lived in Highgate, and this would be a fast way home. In those days, nowadays, it's jammed. Everybody walking across the zebra crossing. So it's a lot different nowadays. Moving around here, we have some more items. One thing about the Beatles, and particularly Brian Epstein, he was a great marketer. He had the Beatles doing everything. From here we have some mothballs. That's mothballs. The Beatles tape, sellotape, cigar wrappers, and the magic slate, all kinds of things. Even ladies' nylons had the names on it, and just about anything and everything where they could make a buck, they got into. So moving around, there's some. Here they are again in Miami years ago, and some LPs. Oh, this is the Long Johns. Here are the Long Johns. Again, as I was telling you, people coming in, and everyone's got a story. And I was listening to some people the other day. We were talking about the Long Johns that were worn by John Lennon when they went to visit Yoko's ex-husband in Denmark. And then this person said to the other one, "Oh, that's why they named the underwear Long Johns after John Lennon." Well, of course, it wasn't the case, but we do get some fascinating stories and some quite interesting too. Moving around, we have some old cancelled checks from National Westminster Bank from George Harrison, paying for £41 and 17 shillings and 0 pence, paying for something in his house, I think it was, yeah. And another guitar up here, again signed by Paul McCartney. This is a left-handed guitar, and it's not a Hofner. So it's anyway, it's still signed by Paul. And this, of course, is Ringo doing one of his ads. Oh, and down here, this is interesting. This is a shaving kit that John Lennon had on a TWA flight from England to the USA. And again, there's a letter of authenticity there on one of these items. More items we have of Ringo, again, and another bill that he's been paying the Music Publishers Association, £11. So again, Ringo, and an early photograph of Cynthia and Julian way back when. So there's some interesting problems there. And some 8 tracks and more 8 tracks. So there's very old items here. And of course, this one on the wall here, which we saw, and other items. And then in some of these cabinets, there's just so many items that are to see, from very small pins to large pins to plates and all kinds of collectible items that Robert has acquired over the years. And moving around, we have, this is a tie that was donated by Jojo Lane from way back when, and Paul McCartney is wearing it in that photograph there. And their last performance, I think, is at Shea Stadium. So, and then moving around here, we have more items. We have the guitar and some collectible stamps and some tickets that people have kept over the years that they went to see them. And some of the items we have for sale. We have T-shirts, we have caps, we have a Penny Lane sign, and socks, and mugs, and lots of other things. And here's probably one of the most interesting cabinets that we have. Of course, the Beatles down there as dolls. And then moving in here, these are toppings for cakes. Put them on cakes, and little items here. And of course, the Rolls Royce that they used years ago, the famous Rolls Royce. And down here, there's a pair of sunglasses, and they were John Lennon's non-prescription sunglasses. And had those for a couple of years now. And then moving around, we have a Serape here, which was owned by Ringo Starr, and his girlfriend at the time bought it for him. And in 1974, and they were dating for some 5 years, I think, and then he broke it off, and I met Barbara Bach, and the rest is history from that. But this is the Serape. We have a video of him wearing it in Denmark. I think it's been in Denmark. So it's another interesting item there. And of course, these Beatlemania clothes that people have had in the past. And walking over here, we have, of course, the marionettes, the puppets, that have been very popular with people. And some of the, again, more of the early items that they had, for example, they had a talcum powder, hairspray for men and women, all kinds of things. You name it, they had it. Games, pomade for your hair, and again, hairspray and other items in there. And moving around, this is again the marionettes, and we have this phone box. This was again a promotional piece, and this is a great photo opportunity for people when they come in to sit down and have the photographs taken with the Beatles. This is one of the most popular ones. I'll show you the other two in a minute. And it is an old poster of people. The surrounding ones, the guys at the top and the bottom, were other bands at the time. Beatles are there in the centerpiece. And here's a photograph. The bottom left, the red one. Oops, the bottom left one is Rory Storm, and not Rory Storm. Johnny Hutchinson, Johnny Hutch, and the Big Three. So he had, in fact, Johnny Hutch, after Pete Best left, Johnny Hutch was offered the job as drummer, and he turned it down. So he very much regretted. There's the Rolling Stones in yellow, the one right next to him. So look how young they are. Look how we all were in those days. My goodness me. So interesting. And coming back round, let me see. This is an interesting. Oh, here's another piece of memorabilia. Ringo Starr's silk and satin shirt that he wore, and we had that for several years too. I'm moving around here. Let me see. This is another good one. Oh, we have here these Sergeant Pepper jackets, uniforms, and we used to let people wear them, and we take their photographs. But since the COVID, of course, we haven't been able to do anything like that. So that's been locked away. And coming back around here, have more of the Beatles dolls and paraphernalia, and the famous Sergeant Pepper music box. And moving down here this way, this is the Butcher's album, the famous Butcher's album over there in the bottom left. And that was famous because it was so bad, it was in bad taste, that it had to be taken down. And then they released the one next to it several days later. But it was supposed to be an objection to a demonstration of an anti-war, anti-Vietnam protest, and it didn't happen. And then we have around here a whole display cabinet full of yellow submarine paraphernalia, and anything from lunch boxes to some of the dolls that were around at the time, and the yellow submarine Ringo, and the blue meanie, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff in there for people to come and view. And there's more of the Beatles paraphernalia up there, again from the yellow submarine. So there's a whole lot of things for people to see, and it'll be in a much better environment when we move to the new facility. We also have a drum kit that Ringo used in a commercial for television some years ago. So that's going to be on display, and we have several other pinball machines that Robert's recently acquired, and including, well, this one we have, and there's 3 more of these. No, this is a slot machine, the pinball machine, the big one. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. Jay, do you have any questions?
Oh, it's fabulous. We're just enjoying the tour. Thank you
good.
for giving us such a great overview. We did have a couple of minutes left. I'm just curious, how and why, did Robert come up with Penny Lane to start the title of the museum?
I think it's because it's probably one of the most popular of the songs, and it's got nothing to do with the area, of course, but it's just probably one of the most popular songs, and he decided to name it Penny Lane after going through several other suggestions and ideas, and then this one came up. And of course, the Union Jack, the Union flag, is the carpet people love. This is one of the best spots to have your photograph taken. This one because of all the Penny Lane and the guitar, of course, and then this is the other one here, where we have, again, Penny Lane and the Beatles. So there's some great photo opportunities here. And one of the first slides you showed of the exterior of the building is the one with the cutouts. They've got the holes in the face. And that's where people, tourists tend to put their faces through and take some tourist shots of this. So it's been very, very popular and great promotion for us.
Most definitely. Looking back, somebody growing up Liverpool at the time, can you only imagine how the Beatles developed and the worldwide fame they achieved?
Well, of course, we had no idea at the time. People say, "Oh, well, what were they like?" And the answer is, they were just normal human beings. I mean, there's no. They'd just come back from Germany. And of course, anybody in Liverpool at the time, Liverpool was very depressed. It was after the war, rationing had just finished, and it was really down. And let alone anybody who'd been abroad, i.e. to Europe, were just amazingly, never mind work there. So these guys came back from Germany, and they were in the equivalent in those days of superstars because they traveled. So that was the definition of how they were traveling, how popular they were. Let me flick it back to me. So there you are. So that was it. And the one thing that was around at the time, one thing that people always had in their mind was everybody that I knew was one ambition they had, and that was to get the heck out of Liverpool. So soon as you became 16 or 17 or 18, everybody, I was on my first train to London, and that was it. And then then I had this terrible Liverpool accent, which I say terrible, but it never worked in your favor until I went to drama school in London, and the Beatles had become so popular. And I went to drama school, obviously, to get rid of the accent. And then when I got there, Liverpool became so famous. And they started to do plays and TVs based on Liverpool. And people would say to me, "Oh, Colin, will you do a Liverpool accent for me?" I thought, "Oh, Lordy, I've come here all this way to get rid of it." Anyway, so there was a little bit of fun.
Colin, unfortunately, we have to wrap up. I want to thank you so much for your time, for giving this fabulous tour. Thanks also to Robert for creating this wonderful opportunity for all of us to enjoy. Best of luck in the upcoming move, and look forward to visiting sometime soon. Thanks again. This was fabulous.
All right, Jay. Thank you very much for having us. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.